Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to We Have to Change Our Vision, Swami Anubhavananda. So, I'm guessing he's saying how we have to change the way we see things, change our vision. But I'm wondering in what way. Seeing things for what it is. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that say that. I do. And it's kind of really hard. How do I say this? So, obviously, we look at things through our own perspective, and we add a lot of our own biases to our perspective. When we see someone do something, there's always a bias that we add to that, and we cannot see things for what they really are. For the most part, I believe, especially for those who don't really look inwards, they are more susceptible to that than people who look inwards and evaluate the things that they do. So I believe the people who evaluate that look inwards, either through spirituality or philosophy, but just looks inwards into themselves, especially the actions that they take, they can see that from a different perspective as well, generally speaking. So I'm not sure what it means by we have to change our vision. So let's go give it a shot.
As is the vision, so is the perception. As is the perception, so is the interaction. As is the interaction, so is the experience. As is the experience, so is the quality of life. So, where from it starts? It starts from what is our vision? See?
Hmm.
If my vision is very limited, like one story, I can create as many stories as you want. See? The study of scriptures is meant only for this. We have to change our vision. There was a fish from the ocean. He went to a well, and in that well there was a frog. So the frog asked this fish, "Who are you?" He said, "I am fish." The frog must be Indian because these questions are asked only by Indians. "What is your name?" He said, "Fish." "Where are you from?" "Ocean." "What is ocean?" "Ocean is water." "That I understand ocean." "How much water?" "This much." A frog cannot think big. So the fish said, "No." "Then this much?" "No." He took a leap within the waters. "This much?" He said, "No." Out of sarcasm and frustration, he jumped diagonally from wall to wall. "Do you mean this much?" He said, "No, Baba." "Then how much?" "Come." They went to the ocean. And now the fish is asking, "Tell me, how much is the water?" See? Now, from this story, what we have to understand. But instead of understanding, one old man was sitting in that satsang, right in the front. And he raises, "Swamiji, I got a question." He was so old and kind of dilapidated. I didn't want to bounce on him. Normally I bounce. So his question was, how the fish went to the well? He asked this question. And then he started looking at the audience. See my question. How the fish went to the well? I told him, by Kingfisher Airlines. Now, what is the moral of the story? What we call in scriptures as Tatparya Nirnay. When something is said for what? In the same manner, What is the moral of the story? Moral of the story is a this comes in the our Sanskrit books. Kupa manduk vritti. Kupa manduk means a frog in the well. He cannot think beyond the well. This is all. And therefore, his understanding will be always limited. If this example is clear, in the same manner. What is the source of our knowledge? The sense organs, the mind, and the intellect. And therefore, whatever we know through these three agencies of knowledge, that alone is the truth. If something is beyond the scope of sense
Hmm.
organs, mind, and intellect, it's a bluff. Nothing exists.
Well, I mean, I kind of understand why. It's not necessarily that it doesn't, nothing exists, but more along the lines, it's like because if it's never been seen, I'm not really countering him, but I'm just explaining the reason why. Hopefully, he says something about it. It's just because if I told you there was a unicorn in my backyard and you never seen my backyard, would you just automatically believe it? You know, you'd be like, I've never seen a unicorn. I've seen the backyard. Something's not adding up there. You wouldn't automatically just believe in it. You'd question things that you have not experienced, and it makes sense. You don't want to, I guess, be a fool and just believe in everything that everyone says. Not everyone speaks the truth, and there are people out there who will take advantage of you if you just believe in what people say. So it makes sense why there's distrust. This sounds terrible to say that, but it's understandable why you don't believe in things that you've not experienced. And this is one of the philosophies of is it Advaita Vedanta or Indian philosophy, Hinduism, I believe. I can't remember what it's called, but it is essentially you only believe in what you've witnessed. Essentially, so if you've not witnessed it, you don't believe in it. So it is a philosophy, an Indian philosophy. I forgot what the name of it is, but I do remember it, and it makes sense. But there is kind of a problem to that philosophy. It's the fact that nothing necessarily can be done, because even when someone writes down the truth in the book and it is an actual factual truth, you still cannot believe in it because you have not witnessed it. So everything always starts at zero with everyone. So it's going to be hard to go beyond what our limitations are. So, for example, if the smartest person in the book, in the world, the book, if the smartest person in the world started from zero and got to 100, let's put a number there, 100, and and maybe I get to the end of my life 25, someone else gets to 35, basically starting from zero, and this is the knowledge they accumulated. What amount of knowledge that is, we don't know. But we'll never get past that 100 because the smartest person in the world could get to 100, but what's beyond the 100? Well, we don't know because we always have to start at zero. So it's kind of the problem with that one philosophy, but at the same time, it makes sense to some degree.
See how important it is. And therefore, when we tell you, if you can catch it, it will be easiest to discover your own divine nature. Statement is Pramana Nirapeksha Anubhuti, experience which does not involve sense organs, mind, and intellect. This is the truth. What does it mean? Experience which does not involve sense organs, meaning the five objects Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, the sound, the touch, the form, the taste, and the smell. These are no more associated with the truth that we are. Drop it. Then, mind. Mind can know only emotions. I like it, I dislike it. See? Mind is not involved. Therefore, you cannot say, I like God or I don't like God. There is no option given. Non-optional experience is the truth. Do we have option? I am or I am not? Think. And the third, intellect functions in the field of concepts. The truth is not a concept. See, once I was in Pittsburgh, and after my talk was over, the professor of the university or college, he said, Mr. Swami, you have presented the concepts very well. I said, my dear, I disagree with you because I did not talk concepts. You are a professor is a concept. Tomorrow when you are retired, you are an ex-professor. Ex means unknown. Today you are American citizen. Once you go to India, you will fall in love with India. You will become Indian citizen. You will not go back. Then that concept that I am American is a concept subject to modification. But I am or I am not, is this option available to us? When we have no option, whether I am or I am not, how will you know? Therefore, the real problem is we are trying to discover the truth through the known means of knowledge. Therefore, the simplest spiritual practice is just anything that is perceived through sense organs, mind, or intellect, don't take it seriously. Sounds are heard by the ears. How do we listen to silence? Forms are seen by the eyes. How do we see the formless space supporting the forms? See, friends, this is known by the wise man, and other wise man doesn't understand this.
But I mean, that's kind of the point, though. It's like, I mean, again, I struggle to understand him. I did understand a bit about the very beginning. It made a lot of sense. Even through halfway through, then towards the end here, it started getting a little bit questioning, as in like, I think I do, but I'm not sure. I think I'm hopefully starting to understand him a little bit more. But the thing about silence, how do you hear silence? It's the absence of noise, or yeah, noise essentially. That's how silence is heard. Because the only way to hear silence is to be absence of noise. And then, like, how do you see the formless space? That's well, obviously the absence of forms. You know, it's a very interesting thing because I talk about. I don't know if it's related or not, but let me know if you think it is. When, how do I say? If, say, someone was born, I don't know how that'd be possible, but anyways, let's just experiment here. If someone was born and they don't have any senses, none of the five senses work, for example, they can't feel anything, they can't see anything, they can't hear anything, they can't taste anything, um, hear, see, smell, taste, or touch. None of that. Since the day that they were born, what would their experience be like? Would they know that they're alive? Like, you know, how it's an impossible thing to know because, and they can't talk. There's no form of communication. I mean, I, th- I think, well, deaf people can make noises, so it's not that they can't talk. But I guess it wouldn't matter to this person whether they can make a noise or not. because they can't hear anyway. They can't feel anything, so they can't read Braille. They can't smell anything. They can't taste anything. There's just no communication whatsoever. But the body and brain is alive. I do wonder what they would experience, and would they have any knowledge or knowing? They'd have no memory. They would have no experience, right? Would they experience absolutely nothing while the body and mind's still alive? Now, I don't think it's too direct in comparison, but just the sheer fact that he went from how do you hear silence and how do you see the formless space? Essentially, this person is seeing purely silence and purely formless space. From birth to death, that's what this person experienced. And and another interesting thing would be the sheer fact that imagine if it talks about like was it Matrix and stuff, where excuse me, where imagine if you go to sleep, then you wake up in your body and go about your everyday business. But when you went to sleep, you died. They put your brain into a little tube, into a little machine or whatever, and you wake up the very next day. Would you know any different? Like again, I guess this goes back to essentially what sci-fi people have been talking about. Like, what if we're one big simulation? We wouldn't know. This could be like something that Sadhguru says. I forgot what number he said. 89, I believe. And the many explanations of the fact that I believe there have been many big bangs. I've thought about that before watching this video, so I want to have that. I want to be proud of that one. But and Seguru during that time said 80, 89, 87, somewhere around there, talking about potentially how many times the universe restarted, a cyclical matter. But Sadhguru did say there was a final number, I believe somewhere 120 something, I believe. So nice. Well, going way off topic here, but um, yeah, that's how I kind of just go from one topic to the next to the next to the next. But anyways, um, which has nothing to do with this. I am so sorry. But again, just the mind, experience absolutely nothing, and that's kind of how I was curious about how that experience would be, and is it possible? Is it? It would seem like it. At least according to Sadhguru, he claims to have meditated to where a week went by and didn't realize it. People were I don't know, hitting him or tapping him, trying to get him to get up, and he just sat there and meditated for a week. Supposedly, he made that claim. But anyways, I did struggle towards the end here of what he was trying to say. Let me see if I can get to the right spot.
How will you know? Therefore, the real problem is we are trying to discover the truth through the known means of knowledge. Therefore, the simplest spiritual practice is just anything that is perceived through sense organs, mind, or intellect, don't take it seriously. Sounds are heard by the ears. How do we listen to silence?
Okay, so basically, he's saying discard the sense organs, including the mind and the intellect. But that's still an experience, in my opinion, though, is it not? It's the lack thereof is an experience itself. um, Kind of like here's a really interesting one. To actually to kind of mimic what he's talking about. I talked about this a few times in my videos. I don't know if it exists everywhere or not. I doubt it because I don't know how many people go to it, but it's called like a sensory deprive. Why can I say that word? Essentially, it deprives your sensories. So it's a darkened room that has sound absorbing material on the walls, and there's this water that's your same body temperature supposedly that you float on. And it's like heavily salted, I believe, so it's a dense type of water so that you would actually float on it. And the room, I believe, is maybe your same temperature. I'm not sure about that one. But essentially, it's that you can't see anything because it's pure pitch black. There is no echo or noise in the room because it's sound dampening. And if you talk, there's no echo on it. There's nothing in the room that makes noise. So if you stay silent, some people said that they hear their heartbeat and they can hear the blood in their veins rushing. And when you're floating on the water, it feels like you're just floating on air because it's the same temperature. You don't really feel it. Um, and I think, I don't, I think a few people tried to stay in there for as long as they could, but they couldn't stay longer than like 30 minutes or something like that. I can't remember, but I would love to try that room out and see how long I last in there before I go crazy. But it would be pretty close to what he's saying, at least, without you having to try, kind of. But obviously, the intellect or the mind itself will get in the way because you won't be able to hear anything, you won't be able to see anything, you won't be able to necessarily touch anything. If you do it right, of course, you're supposed to be floating on the water. Um, so the only thing you have to combat is your mind or your mind, maybe your intellect. I'm not sure how the intellect works, but anything that essentially you're talking to yourself. So outside of the blankness of listen and the blankness of the sightseeing, that's taken care of for you on that sensory deprivation room. So, anyways, I think that's all I have to say about this one. I talked a little bit off subject, a little bit much, but let me know if there's one by where you guys are at, and have you tried it? Let me know if you've tried it, especially because that's got to be an experience. Because there's no true silence, I don't believe, anywhere necessarily. There's wind, there's critters, and there's people. Even if you go like out in the middle of the desert, there's still critters, there's still wind, you know. So I don't think there's any place that's truly silent. So, anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up the sound down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.